I just need you to get real loose. Get comfortable. Grab your love.
All right, welcome to Monday, May 11th. Today we are going to be continuing on with some geometry with perpendicular and parallel lines. We are going to move on to a new word problem. It has to do with fractions, so it's going to kind of be a pre-party, let's call it a party, to next week when we hit fractions running. But we're kind of down to these word problems and what you have in that packet that is printed for you. So we're going to start there and kind of get you a little warmed up this week and walk you through it, and then continue on with some more fun fraction word problems because there's plenty of them in there for you. Then we have our Achieve article. It's What Oil Brings is the title, so I'll read that aloud for you today because tomorrow you want to do that activity. Reading on your own on Epic or any book at your AR level. Of course, 30 minutes is the goal, and then I am, at the end of this, on to already chapter 11, and it is actually the Quidditch match, the first Quidditch match, Gryffindor versus Slytherin, so it's a pretty exciting chapter. I can't believe we're halfway through our book, so it's getting pretty good, guys. Hopefully you're with us. Then, power writing, of course, we're on to day 18.
And if you're by yourself, no worries. Just follow after me. I want to do the two-step and cowboy boogie. Grab a sweetheart and spin out with them.
All right, today is May 11th for your math. We are working on perpendicular and parallel lines. If you're in your packet, you want to look for 3 things can kind of be your hint to make sure you're on that right page. 4-point G1 in that corner. Perpendicular and parallel lines, the title, of course, and it's page 35 if you're just going by pages. We are mixing around like we did last week, but just know it's around that same area that you were with your angles. Just flip until you find it, guys. Sorry for that. And then, of course, on Google Classroom, Monday Math, May 11th is what you're looking for, or the Google form is always accessible. Just click there. It'll take you right to your form. All right, so today we are doing perpendicular and parallel lines. I want to make sure the vocab we kind of go over with the visual that you are going to be seeing, and it's only going to be these 2 types of lines. I know we went through intersecting and different types. Just make sure today you know we're focused on perpendicular and parallel. So perpendicular are lines that intersect to form a right angle. So that's why we did angles first and then came here to review. So a right angle is 90 degrees, and what perpendicular lines are, it's when 2 lines cross and make a 90 degrees. So you're going to be looking for that 90-degree angle, as you see right here, that's 90 degrees, down here is 90 degrees, all the way around you have 90-degree angles, and when you have 90 degree with 2 lines crossing, bingo, perpendicular. Now, what's the other thing you could have? You can have parallel lines, and parallel lines are 2 lines that never intersect. So even if the lines in front of you don't, you can have ones that I'll show you today that kind of curve a little, and even if they're not crossing in the picture, you know that that line, remember we learned last week that if it has an arrow at each end, it's going on and on and on and on and on forever. So that line that cuts through Mr. Fan's room and then up to the front office and then all the way down and up to North County and to the Del Mar, I mean, that whole idea that I was talking to you guys about, that the line goes on and on, you want to keep in mind with these parallel lines, because these lines, even if they keep going on and on and on, it's shooting out straight like this all the way down, they're not going to cross with this line. Even with it all the way down to Mexico, it's not going to cross.
You'll find lines that are perpendicular on the rectangle's perimeter. Or let's break it down even simpler. They make right angles in particular.
Parallel lines never meet. Intersecting lines make these. Perpendicular lines meet at 90 degrees. Put your hands in the air with me. Parallel, intersecting, perpendicular, they're rectangular.
Now let's talk about detecting if two lines are intersecting. It's the term that we select if at any point two lines connect.
Parallel lines never meet. Intersecting lines make these. Perpendicular lines meet at 90 degrees. Put your hands in the air with me. Parallel, intersecting, perpendicular, they're rectangular.
When two lines will never touch, then you can tell that those two lines are parallel. Like these telephone wires up above the street, parallel lines will never meet.
Parallel lines never meet. Intersecting lines make these. Perpendicular lines meet at 90 degrees. Put your hands in the air with me. Parallel, intersecting, perpendicular, they're rectangular.
All right, so what we are going to do here is we are going to decide if this line over here are true or false for whatever term they're telling us. So this is asking you perpendicular lines, true or false. Is this a perpendicular line? I gave you this to kind of anchor you as a chart to understand what your answer is going to be. Are you going to say it's true or false? I want to give you a moment to try on your own, and then I will show you the answer. All right, so for this one, you are going to look and say, okay, I have a line coming down, I have a line going across, I have a right angle, oh, I have a right angle there, a right angle here, and another right angle there. All right, well, all of them make a right angle, so they intersect with a right angle, so I'm going to say this is true that it is perpendicular. Then you want to move on and say, okay, perpendicular lines, are these perpendicular lines? Do they cross and form a right angle? Go ahead and try true or false, and then I will give you the answer. All right, so I'm going to look and go, this looks like an obtuse angle. Over here we have another angle that's a little less than 90, because 90 would probably be, what would it be? Right there. Okay, well, it's not. So then what about down here? This one's obtuse, and then acute. Okay, well, no, these cross, yeah, but they're definitely not a right angle. So I am going to say that these are false, that these two intersecting lines are not perpendicular lines. Now parallel. We are going to decide, are these lines parallel? Parallel means that they're never going to intersect. So go ahead and give it a try, and then I will give you the answer. All right, so this one is one of those tricky ones that I want you guys to be aware of. As I told you, this line is going to be going on and on and on and on and on, over and over and over and on this way. And what you need to look at is the angle of this line, and look how it is coming down. It's going to keep coming down and down and down and down and down and down, and eventually they are going to cross. So these are not parallel lines because they will end up crossing. Do they cross in the picture right here? No. But as it goes on and on and on and on and on, because it's never ending, this line is eventually going to start sloping down, 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 and crossing. Okay? Now for this one, true or false? Are these lines ever going to intersect? All right, so as I was saying for this one, as this line continues to kind of slope down, you're going to see that this line is doing the exact same thing. So since they are both going in that downward motion on and on and on, you are not going to see these two lines cross. So this would be a true parallel lines because they are not or never going to intersect.
Put your hips in it. Let's have some fun. To the left now. To the right. Now
All right,
take your
for our
left
word problem of the week, today is your first day to go in and give it a try. If you want to use that 6-box template that you have in your packet, of course, you can use that. I'll go over the first 2 boxes tomorrow. So for today, if you want to kind of stay with me in pacing, that's going to be you wanting today to pull out the numbers from this problem and then also pulling out the question. So that, what are you finding? If you are with us in the packet, you're going to be looking for those keywords of 2 brothers, and the number 14 is down in that corner. Of course, you can't see it now. The Google Classroom would be right here, and then the form, of course, is up for you to work on. All right, so I'm going to read you the problem, and then it's really up to you to kind of navigate. And tomorrow I will be helping you out piece by piece, just like last week. This problem reads, 2 brothers are eating out of the same box of cheese crackers. Raymond eats 1/3 of the box. Sean, on the other hand, eats 1/5 of the box. Compare the amounts eaten by the 2 brothers using, those are those comparisons of less than, greater than, or equal to. The brother's sister eats 1/2 of a smaller size box of crackers. Can her amount be compared with the boys? Explain your reasoning. So it's a little odd because I would say this question in between kind of breaks up the problem. I particularly know that I would start right now and skip down to that draw box, but of course it's all up to you. But I really think a visual is going to be crucial for this week since there's a lot going on. There's multiple people working here, so with this comparison, you're going to want to get out everything this problem offers you and then start breaking it down. But we will get more of that tomorrow, so good luck. Get started. Annotate this problem out, and we will see more tomorrow.
Don't roll your shoulders. Do the slip and slide. This next part's my favorite part of this time to shine. Gonna do the two-step.
All right, today's Achieve article is titled, What Oil Brings? And you're going to see it with that. It kind of reminds me of our benchmark unit, that oil rig. You kind of see it's like, it more looks like a construction from this far away, but when you see it more close up, which you'll see in a minute, that you're looking for kind of an oil rig type of thing. So you're going to be looking for this page, What Oil Brings. Of course, online, your notes are available if that's where you are getting them, or if you're logging into Achieve Online, your article will be your own level. So take your course, and I will now, though, read the article that the title for today is What Oil Brings. It says, Cotulla, Texas. For many years, Cotulla, Texas, and nearby towns struggled. Jobs were so hard to find that young people moved away. Now people from all over are moving to Cotulla. Why? An oil boom is bringing in a lot of money. Still some wonder if it is safe for people. This is a header, that's why it's bolded, and it says, Changing a Small Town. The small town of Cotulla is in the middle of the boom. Before the boom, Cotulla was very poor. Now many landowners are getting rich from the oil on their land. Cotulla is growing. So far, 12,600 people have found jobs. By 2020, that number could grow to 68,000. Many people are thrilled with town's bright future. Some are already seeing their lives changing. Businesses are doing well. New businesses are opening. Apartments are being built. There are new roads, water lines, and parks. People are driving around town in new cars. Second heading says drilling for oil. The newfound oil is underground in a kind of rock called shale. The oil is hard to get out. Oil companies are using something called fracking. In fracking, chemicals are mixed with water and forced into the shell. The mix breaks up the rocks and lets the oil out. Oil companies say fracking is safe. Some people do not agree. Why not? They say the chemicals could contaminate the groundwater. Scientists did a study that showed a link between fracking and methane. Methane is a gas that can catch on fire. Studies are being done to see if methane makes water unsafe to drink. The gas can get out of the water. It can build up in the air. This could cause breathing problems. Our last subheading says, hoping for a bright future. Fracking has some people worried. It has also brought good changes to Cotulla. The changes are welcome in one of the nation's poorest areas. Many people in Cotulla say they'll count on the government to make sure that damage to the environment will be small. Your dictionary down here is business, which is a noun, and it means a place where some things are made, bought, and sold to get money. And a chemical is a noun, and it's something man-made that can get into the air, water, and the earth. So I think it's very important to note with this article that you have text features that you're working with here. So you have these subheadings, and these headers are bolded, and they kind of tell you what that kind of main idea or main topic of the paragraphs below are. So when you're doing your activity tomorrow, those would really be an anchor, kind of a thing that pulls you in and goes, is this question going to be about changing a small town? Is it about drilling for oil? Or is it about hoping for a bright future? You would kind of want to use that on this first page to figure it out.
Details down below.
Yeah, I go down there and check what's going on every morning. See how far they drilled in. Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers. They'll get a little cash out of it,
Up the road, this idyllic property is 4 weeks ahead of the Levines. The rig and the workers and the trailers were just here, now replaced by these tanks. Listen closely. That's the hiss of natural gas under pressure being captured as it escapes from its underground home for thousands of years. And to brothers Mark and Billy Yaney, it's the sound of money.
It's doing about 100 barrels of oil and 1,000 MCF in gas a day. It should bring about gross $10,000.
A day?
Yes, ma'am.
The Yaneys have been in the oil and gas business for 2 generations. The private company, Leexus Oil, fronts the money for the risky part of the venture, the month-long drill deep into the earth.
This drilling rig broke ground here about 2 weeks ago, and if all goes according to plan, it should start pulling up oil within the next week.
But it's an expensive process to go after it. We spent about $1 million drilling this well.
And it's not just natural gas these wells are producing.
You'll see, Lisa, all the gas escaping.
That orange liquid is sweet Texas crude, fresh virgin oil. Tanks separate the natural gas from the oil. The property owners get a cut, and so does Leexus. Both of these properties had old vertical wells that were no longer producing. But this area lies above the Austin Chalk Formation, limestone with natural fractures that may contain valuable fossil fuels.
So you have a fault or a fracture that's there that we're hoping that's virgin, that has not been hit before.
So the Yaneys are going back into existing wells, first going to its original depth, but then making a turn miles below the Earth's surface and drilling horizontally.
We're at about 11,600 foot TVD, which is total vertical depth.
Using a bit like this, they drill around the clock, pushing 30-foot pipes into the ground, weighted down by mud.
When that gas hits, it starts to want to travel up the well hole, but we want to kind of keep it back. We've got the ability to go ahead and add more mud and mud up and keep the well from just, blowing the rig off the hole.
This well is so powerful that it is flowing under its own pressure, not needing any help.
Ultimately, it's going to end up in our gas tank here. It's going to give jobs to the American people here.
The Yaneys and the Levines cross their fingers, watching the giant temporary tower constructed away from the drilling rig, which will send a flare skyward if they hit a pocket. It's a process the Yaneys plan to repeat continuously this year, capitalizing on skyrocketing oil prices, reviving the local economy.
I think energy is leading the country out of the recession. It's one of the fastest recovering sectors. I hope this well produces for 10 to 15 more years. Wouldn't be surprised if it lasted longer.
For today's writing, you're on Power Writing prompt number 18, and the prompt is, if you were a doctor, what kind of doctor would you be? Examples: children doctor, veterinarian, eye doctor, dentist. Tell what your job would be like. So you can really choose any kind of doctor, but you want to take one of those roles on, pretend that that is actually your day-to-day job, and take us through your day. Of course, you can go through Google Classroom or click on here for your form. Have some fun, guys. Happy writing. Chapter 11, Quidditch. As they entered November, the weather turned very cold. The mountains around the school became icy gray, the lake like chilled steel. Every morning, the ground was covered in frost. Hagrid could be seen from the upstairs windows defrosting broomsticks on the Quidditch field, bundled up in a long moleskin overcoat, rabbit fur gloves, and enormous beaver skin boots. The Quidditch season had begun. On Saturday, Harry would be playing in his first match after weeks of training. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. If Gryffindor won, they would move up into second place in the house championship. Hardly anyone had seen Harry play, because Wood had decided that as their secret weapon, Harry should be kept well secret. But the news that he was playing Seeker had leaked out somehow, and Harry didn't know which was worse. People telling him he'd be brilliant, or people telling him they'd be running around underneath him holding a mattress. It was really lucky that Harry now had Hermione as a friend. He didn't know how he had gotten through all this homework without her. What with all the last-minute Quidditch practice Wood was making them do. She had almost lent him Quidditch Through the Ages, which turned out to be a very interesting read. Harry learned that there were 700 ways of committing a Quidditch foul, and that all of them had happened during a World Cup match in 1473. That Seekers were usually the smallest and fastest players, and that most serious Quidditch accidents seemed to happen to them. That although people rarely died playing Quidditch, referees had been known to vanish and turn up months later in the Sahara Desert. Hermione had become a bit more relaxed about breaking rules since Harry and Ron had saved her from the mountain troll, and she was much nicer for it. The day before Harry's first Quidditch match, the three of them were out in the freezing courtyard during break. She had conjured them up a bright blue fire that could be carried around in a jam jar. They were standing with their backs to it, getting warm, when Snape crossed the yard. Harry noticed at once that Snape was limping. Harry, Ron, and Hermione moved closer, together, to block the fire from view. They were sure it wouldn't be allowed. Unfortunately, something about their guilty faces caught Snape's eye. He limped over. He hadn't seen the fire, but he seemed to be looking for a reason to tell them off anyways. "What's that you got there, Potter?" It was Quidditch Through the Ages. Harry showed him. "Library books are not to be taken outside the school," said Snape. "Give it to me. 5 Griffs from Gryffindor." "He just made that rule up," Harry muttered angrily as Snape lifted away. "Wonder what's wrong with his leg." "Don't know, but I hope it's really hurting him," said Ron bitterly. The Gryffindor common room was very noisy that evening. Harry, Ron, and Hermione sat together, next to a window. Hermione was checking Harry and Ron's charms homework for them. She would never let them copy. How will you learn? But why ask by asking her to read it through, they got the right answers anyway. Harry felt restless. He wanted Quidditch Through the Ages back to take his mind off his nerves about tomorrow. Why should he be afraid of Snape? Getting up, he told Ron and Hermione he was going to ask Snape if he could have it. "Better you than me," they said together, but Harry had an idea that Snape wouldn't refuse, if there were other teachers listening. He made his way down to the staff room and knocked. There was no answer. He knocked again. Nothing. Perhaps Snape had left the book in there. It was worth a try. He pushed the door ajar and peered inside, and a horrible scene met his eyes. Snape and Filch were inside alone. Snape was holding his robe above his knees. One of his legs was bloody and mangled. Filch was handing Snape bandages. "Blasted things," Snape was saying. "How are you supposed to keep your eyes on all three heads at once?" Harry tried to shut the door quietly, but "Potter?" Snape's face was twisted with fury as he dropped his robes quickly to hide his leg. Harry gulped. "I just wondered if I could get my book back." "Get out! Out!" Harry left before Snape could take any more points from Gryffindor. He sprinted back upstairs. "Did you get it?" Ron asked as Harry joined them. "What's the matter?" "What's the matter?" In a low whisper, Harry told them what he'd seen. "You know what this means," he said breathlessly. "He tried to get past the three-headed dog at Halloween. That's where he was going when we saw him. He's after whatever it's guarding. And I'd bet my broomstick he let the troll in to make a diversion." Hermione's eyes were wide. "No, he wouldn't," she said. "I know he's not very nice, but he wouldn't try and steal something Dumbledore was keeping safe." "Honestly, Hermione, you think all teachers are saints or something?" snapped Ron. "I'm with Harry. I wouldn't put anything past Snape." "But what's he after? What's the dog guarding?" Harry went to bed with his head buzzing with the same question. Neville was snoring loudly, but Harry couldn't sleep. He tried to empty his mind. He needed to sleep. He had to. He had his first Quidditch match in a few hours, but the expression on Snape's face when Harry had seen his leg wasn't easy to forget. The next morning dawned very bright and cold. The great hall was full of the delicious smell of fried sausages and the cheerful chatter of everyone looking forward to a good Quidditch match. "You've got to eat some breakfast." "I don't want anything." "Just a bit of toast," wailed Hermione. "I'm not hungry." Harry felt terrible. In an hour's time he'd be walking onto the field. "Harry, you need your strength," said Seamus Finnegan. "Seekers are always the ones who get clobbered by the other team." "Thanks, Seamus," said Harry, watching Seamus pile ketchup on his sausages. By 11 o'clock, the whole school seemed to be out in the stands around the Quidditch pitch. Many students had binoculars. The seats might be raised high in the air, but it was still difficult to see what was going on sometimes. Ron and Hermione joined Neville, Seamus, and Dean, the West Ham fan, up in the top row. As a surprise for Harry, they had painted a large banner on one of the sheets Scabbers had ruined. It said, "Potter for President," and Dean, who was good at drawing, had drawn a large Gryffindor lion underneath. Then Hermione had performed a tricky little charm so that the paint flashed different colors. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Harry and the rest of the team were changing into their scarlet Quidditch robes. Slytherin would be playing in green. Wood cleared his throat for silence. "Okay, men," he said. "And women," said Chaser Angelina Johnson. "And women," Wood agreed. "This is it. The big one," said Fred Weasley. "The one we've been waiting for," said George. "We know Oliver's speech by heart," Fred told Harry. "We were on the team last year." "Shut up, you two," said Wood. "This is the best team Gryffindor's had in years. We're going to win. I know it." He glared at them all as if he had to say, "Or else." "Right, it's time. Good luck, all of you." Harry followed Fred and George out of the locker room, and hoping his knees weren't going to give way, walked onto the field to loud cheers. Madam Hooch was refereeing. She stood in the middle of the field, waiting for the two teams, her broom in her hand. "Now I want a nice fair game, all of you," she said. Once they were all gathered around her, Harry noticed that she seemed to be speaking particularly to the Slytherin captain, Marcus Flint, a fifth year. Harry thought Flint looked as if he had some troll blood on him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the fluttering banner high above flashing "Potter for President" over the crowd. His heart skipped. He felt braver. "Mount your brooms, please." Harry clambered onto his Nimbus 2000. Madam Hooch gave a loud blast on her silver whistle. 15 brooms rose up, high, high into the air. They were off. "And the quaffle is taken immediately by Angelina Johnson of Gryffindor. What an excellent chaser that girl is, and rather attractive too. Jordan!" "Sorry, Professor." The Weasley twins' friend's Lee Jordan was doing the commentary for the match, closely watched by Professor McGonagall. "And she's really belting along up there. A neat pass to Alicia Spinnet. A good find of Oliver Wood's last year, only a reserve back to Johnston. And no, the Slytherins have taken the quaffle. Slytherin captain Marcus Flint gains the quaffle, and off he goes. Flint flying like an eagle up there. He's going to stop by an excellent move by Gryffindor keeper Wood, and the Gryffindors take the quaffle. That's Chaser, Katie Bell of Gryffindor there. Nice dive around Flint, off, up the field, and ouch, that must have hurt. Hit her back of the head by a Bulger. Quaffle taken by the Slytherins. That's Adrian Pusey speeding off towards the goalpost. But he's blocked by a second Bulger, sent his way by Fred and George Weasley. Can't tell which. Nice play by the Gryffindor's beater, anyway, and jumps him back in possession of the Quaffle. A clear field ahead, and off she goes. She's really flying, dodges a speeding Bulger, and the goalposts are ahead. Come on now, Angelina, keep her belt. She dives, misses. Gryffindor score. Gryffindor's cheers filled the cold air with howls and moan from the Slytherins. Budge up there, move along, Hagrid. Ron and Hermione squeezed together to give Hagrid enough space to join them. Been watching from me hut, said Hagrid, patting a large pair of binoculars round his neck. But it isn't the same as being in the crowd. No sign of the snitch yet, eh? Nope, said Ron. Harry hasn't had much to do yet. Kept out of trouble, though, that's something, said Hagrid, raising his binoculars and peering skyward at the speck that was Harry. Way up above them, Harry was gliding over the game, squinting about for some sight of the snitch. This was the part of his and Wood's game plan. Keep out of the way until you catch sight of the snitch. Wood had said, "We don't want you attacked before you have to be." When Angelina had scored, Harry had done a couple of loop-the-loops to let out his feelings. Now he was back on, staring around for the snitch. Once he caught sight of a flash of gold, but it was just a reflection from one of the Weasleys' wristwatches, and one of the Bulgers decided to come pelting his way, more like a cannonball than anything. But Harry dodged it, and Fred Weasley came chasing after it. "All right there, Harry." He had time to yell as he beat the Bulger furiously towards Marcus Flint. "Slytherin's in possession," Lee Wood was saying. "Chaser Pusey ducks 2 Bulgers, 2 Weasleys, and Chaser Spell and speeds towards the wait a moment, that snitch?" A murmur ran through the crowd as Adrian Pusey dropped the Quaffle, busy looking over his shoulder at the flash of gold that had passed his left ear. Harry saw it. In a great rush of excitement, he dived downward after the streak of gold. Slytherin seeker Terence Higgs had seen it too. Neck and neck, they hurtled towards the snitch. All the chasers seemed to have forgotten what they were supposed to be doing as they hung in midair to watch. Harry was faster than Higgs. He could see the little round ball wings fluttering, darting up ahead. He put on an extra spurt of speed. Wham! A roar of rage echoed from the Gryffindor below. Marcus Flint had blocked Harry on purpose, and Harry's broom spun off course. Harry holding on for dear life. "Foul!" screamed the Gryffindors. Madam Hooch spoke angrily to Flint, and then ordered a free shot at the goalpost for Gryffindor. But in all the confusion, of course, the golden snitch had disappeared from sight again. Down in the stands, Team Thomas was yelling, "Send him off, ref! Red card!" "What are you talking about, Dean?" said Ron. "Red card?" said Dean furiously. "In soccer, you get shown the red card and you're out of the game." "But this isn't soccer, Dean," Ron reminded him. Hagrid, however, was on Dean's side. They ought to change the rules. Flint could have knocked Harry out of the air. Lee Jordan was finding it difficult not to take sides. So after that obvious and disgusting bit of cheating, "Jordan," growled Professor McGonagall, after that open and revolting foul, "Jordan, I'm warning you." All right. Flint nearly kills the Gryffindor seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure, so a penalty too. Gryffindor taken by Spinnet, who puts it away, no trouble, and we continue play. Gryffindor still in possession. It was as Harry dodged another Bulger, which went spinning dangerously past his head, that it happened. His broom gave a sudden, frightening lurch. For a split second, he thought he was going to fall. He gripped the broom tightly with both hands and knees. He never felt anything like it. It happened again. It was as though the broom was trying to buck him off. But Nimbus 2000s did not suddenly decide to buck their riders off. Harry tried to turn back toward the Gryffindor's goalpost. He had half a mind to ask Wood to call timeout, and then he realized that his broom was completely out of his control. He couldn't turn it. He couldn't direct it at all. It was zigzagging through the air, and every now and again making violent swishing movements that almost unseated him. Lee was still commentating. Slytherin in possession. Flint with the Quaffle. Passes Spinnet. Passes Bell. Hit hard in the face by Bulger. Hope it's broke his nose. Only joking. Professor Slytherin score. Oh no. The Slytherins were cheering. No one seemed to have noticed that Harry's broom was behaving strangely. It was carrying him slowly higher away from the gate. Jerking and twitching it went. "Don't know what Harry thinks he's doing," Hagrid mumbled, and he stared at him through the binoculars. "If I didn't know better, I'd say he's lost control of his broom. But he can't have Suddenly people were pointing up at Harry all over the stands. His broom had started to roll over and over, with him only just managing to hold on. Then the whole crowd gasped. Harry's broom had given a wild jerk, and Harry swung off it. He was now dangling from it, holding on with only one hand. Did something happen to it when Flint blocked him? Seamus whispered. Can't have, Hagrid said, with his voice shaking. Can't nothing interfere with a broomstick except powerful dark magic. No kid could ever do that to a Nimbus 2000. At these words, Hermione seized Hagrid's binoculars, but instead of looking up at Harry, she started looking frantically at the crowd. What are you doing? Moaned Ron, gray-faced. I knew it, Hermione gasped. Snape, look. Ron grabbed the binoculars. Snape was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry and was muttering non-stop under his breath. He's doing something, jinxing the broom, said Hermione. What should we do? Leave it to me. Before Ron could say another word, Hermione had disappeared. Ron turned the binoculars back on Harry. His broom was vibrating so hard it was almost impossible for him to hang on much longer. The whole crowd was on its feet, watching terrified as the Weasleys flew up to try to pull Harry safely onto one of their brooms. But it was no good. Every time they got near, the broom would jump higher still. They dropped lower and circled beneath him, obviously hoping to catch him if he fell. Marcus Flint seized the quaffle and scored 5 times without anyone noticing. Come on, Hermione, Ron muttered desperately. Hermione had fought her way across the stand where Snape stood, and was now racing along the row behind him. She didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked Professor Quirrell's head first into the row in front. Reaching Snape, she crouched down, pulled out her wand, and whispered a few well-chosen words. Bright blue flames shot from her wand into the hems of Snape's robe. It took perhaps 30 seconds for Snape to realize that he was on fire. A sudden yelp told her she had done her job. Scooping the fire off him into a little jar in her pocket, she scrambled back off the row. Snape would never know what happened. It was enough. Up in the air, Harry was suddenly able to clamber back on his broom. Neville, you can look, Ron said. Neville had been sobbing into Hagrid's jacket for the last 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him clap his hand to his mouth as though he was about to be sick. He hit the field on all fours, coughed, and something gold fell into his hand. I've got the snitch, he shouted, waving it above his head. The game ended in complete confusion. He didn't catch it. He nearly swallowed it, Flint was still howling 20 minutes later, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules, and Lee Jordan was still happily shouting the results. Gryffindor had won by 170 points to 60. Harry heard none of this, though. He was being made a cup of strong tea back in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. It was Snape, Ron was explaining. Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broom, muttering he wouldn't take his eyes off of you. Rubbish, said Hagrid, who hadn't heard a word of what had gone on next to him in the stands. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at one another, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided on the truth. I found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past the 3-headed dog on Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy, he said. Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chappie I met in pubs last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the... Yes, said Harry eagerly. Now don't ask me any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's top secret, that is. But Snape trying to steal it? Rubbish, said Hagrid again. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. So why did he just try to kill Harry? Cried Hermione. The afternoon's events certainly seemed to have changed her mind about Snape. I know a jinx when I see one, Hagrid. I've read all about them. You've got to keep eye contact. And Snape wasn't blinking at all. I saw him. I'm telling you, you're wrong, said Hagrid hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now listen to me. All 3 of you, you're meddling in things that don't concern you. It's dangerous. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's guarding. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Aha, said Harry. So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there? Hagrid looked furious with himself.